We finally got some success, but I felt like Kraft wasn't always in line with the things that I knew to be in the best interest of building a team. Kraft had no real background in football, and in his inexperience, took the draft away from me, and he gave it to somebody else. I felt like some people that were incompetent were making decisions for the organization personnel-wise, and I didn't like it. And I knew I wasn't going back to the Patriots.
The second hour here on WEEI. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday with me. I am KJ Carson. Carson's the last name. 617-779-7937. Text line 37937. That's Bill Parcells on Apple TV, directed by Matthew Hamachek, who we spoke to last week, John Lyons and I. And it's interesting because I have a personal point of reference of what Bill Parcells was getting to. Now, first, I need to say this. You should check out the fight scene that Cam Newton got jumped today at some kind of. It's just, Zach, is not the craziest video you've seen.
It is outrageous.
It's outrageous.
We were talking about it in between the break, but the way his hat just stays planted on his head.
That's amazing. It's tagged at WEEI. Okay, back to the Patriots and Parcells. There's a kid I grew up with named Christian Peter. And some of you remember what happened when Christian Peter was taken in the 5th round by the Patriots. Robert Kraft's wife protested it. It made it to the Boston Globe. Christian Peter gets cut from the team before he even walks on. Christian Peter was second-team All-American at the University of Nebraska, along with his brother Jason. As small as the world is, Christian and I used to be on the same, not club soccer team, but you play rec soc. We were on the same recreational soccer team, and my dad was Jason's coach at one time. We all grew up together. And Parcells, in and around that time, is famously known for saying, "Why allow me to buy the groceries and then not let me shop?" I'm just paraphrasing. I can't remember. It's been that many years. Why let me go get the groceries and prevent me from shopping? That centered around Christian Peter. That year was 1996. What else was going on? Well, let me take you back to the old world of the NFL. See, at one time you had two families. Family Parcells. Family Walsh. But Family Walsh, the leader, got sick, left the game, but left many capos to run rampant around the league. Mike Holmgren, Steve Mariucci, George Seifert, Andy Reid? Yes. And on Family Parcells, it was Bill and Bill. And a kid named Chris. Eric Mangini. I'll get to him in a second. You can stop the music. See, what stopped the 49ers dynasty going into the 90s was Parcells' Giants teams with Bill Belichick's defense. So Belichick is being grown to be the next great coach in waiting. And when you hear Parcells make those comments about Robert Kraft, well, something amazing happened in 1995 into 96. Some remember that the Cleveland Browns were getting ready to move from Cleveland to Baltimore. Who was the head coach that last season in Cleveland? That's the easy answer. Who was the first to report that Cleveland was going to be moving and potentially to Baltimore? Was it the Cleveland Plain Dealer? No. The Baltimore Sun? No. The Boston Globe was the first to report that Cleveland was going to be leaving Cleveland. Well, how could it make it all the way to Boston when the two cities aren't even the first ones reporting it? Who was in Boston at that time? It was Senior Bill. Give me that music again. It was the Senior Bill who wasn't so happy with the Crafts. Didn't like the way they were getting in his way. I stink it up for all and for my friend Belichick, who, of course, the Dynasty is about. So when Parcells, with a lot of chest, says, "I didn't think Kraft had any clue about what was going on with football," then why would you allow your left-hand and right-hand man to take a job with them, knowing these things, unless you believe in planting spies. Which leads me to Eric Mangini. Such a hopeful boy. Went to the same school as Belichick. 24 years old. Gets a job with Belichick. Belichick gets fired. He moves on to Baltimore with the new franchise? That doesn't seem weird to you? Like the guy that's supposed to be your, unless you believe in putting people in place that are going to give you the key information that you want down the road. Oh, this is better than any La Cosa Nostra story, my friends. See, because just like in The Sopranos, young Chris wanted to ascend to where Big Tony was. But after a while, you're just always going to be little Chris. That's why I don't believe in the term Spygate. And you can kill the music because now we're getting further in. I don't believe in the term Spygate. I believe it became moment of truth gate for Eric Mangini. You want to be a head coach in this league? We'll give you the opportunity if you give up Bill. Belichick, that is. Because guess who they just got rid of and was like, we don't need this guy kind of stunk it up for us. Parcells. Belichick turned him down in the middle of the night. Yeah, I'll be your coach. No, I won't be. So now Mangini is still around somewhere, or he comes back into the fold after being in New England. Here's your chance to be a head coach. Failed with Parcells. Belichick didn't even get on the field and dissed us. But we're going to take you, young Chris, to give your chance a shot, to give you a shot. What's the first thing you have to do? Give up Belichick. As in any good La Cosa Nostra movie, because I don't believe there's a such thing as the mob. The young guy in the totem pole, he either he chooses to die or they die for him. Meaning like, okay, you're going to kill yourself career-wise. I don't want to use that term loosely. Or we'll come and get you. Mangini offered himself up. Sacrificial lamb. Only head coach one other place. Where? Cleveland. Oh, how ironic. It's almost if you wonder, had Mangini been always kind of trying to undermine Belichick all along? To the point where it came down to, in order for you to be the head coach of a team in the biggest city in the country and a division rival, give up Belichick. And he did. And so here's the other part is, this is not supposed to be a book report, The Dynasty. I've seen all 10 episodes. I'm not going to sit here and tell you or do any spoilers. I can't stand when people do that to me, so I'm not going to do that to you. But the idea is to put yourself in a scenario during that time that will say, okay, you have all the facts of things that happen. Now watch the body language when they start to answer. The most fascinating part of this series is the eye movement of Belichick that's almost worth 1 million words when asked specific questions. That's the most enjoyable part. Bill gets asked something tough. I'm watching the eyes. Trust me. Some tougher questions come down the line, and those eyes move a whole lot more. But this isn't a hit piece on Belichick. Are some things starting to kind of eke out? Sure. Do you think it's trying to make Robert Kraft look good? Hey, he who holds the gold tells the story, right? Isn't that how history works? I take my hat off to Robert Kraft for some honesty in questions that are asked coming down the road without giving it away. So that's telling you, but he's brutally honest about some things that are asked of him as the season, this Dynasty series continues. The only other thing I will kind of give you a heads up for is like couple of like the episodes, Zach, are like 30 minutes long. You're like, oh, it's only 30 minutes. Like, come on, you got to get, it's more. So when I hear people say, well, how come they didn't mention this? And how come they didn't mention that? And how come they didn't mention this? Is because that's what you know. That's what everybody knows. I mean, you knew that there was some kind of element of disdain between Parcells and Kraft. Did you think Bill Parcells would be able to get up onto that documentary and say his piece? You didn't expect that. It's a good series. I could care less. I mean, like, if you think, you're like, oh, it should have been told, and they just completely glossed over that, you think that was more important than knowing that this little kind of mob faction might have been kind of destroyed almost by the youngest, by Chris of The Sopranos. Zach, you ever see The Sopranos? I don't know if you guys watch The Sopranos.
I haven't. It's on my list. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah. Chris is Eric Mangini. And we've seen what's happened since then. Like, Mangini's not even 60 and hasn't been a coach in the NFL for like 10 years. If that doesn't tell you someone's career is over, or you've gone against the family when you shouldn't have gone against the family, or when you know that these two family trees that started way before you, and it's like I took you back to old Sicily. One is the Walsh tree, the other is the Parcells tree. Offense, defense. And here comes Andy Reid, like the grandkid of the grandkid, potentially ending up with more all-time wins than Bill Belichick, who may end up with a dynasty extended, because that's what the Chiefs are in right now, and may surpass not only Belichick, but may surpass Shula, and then get pushed into a conversation of, is he the greatest coach of all time? That's painful to think about, but it's very real, and it goes back to the old world of the NFL. And Mangini messed that up. If Mangini doesn't play the role of Chris, Mangini's probably the head coach of the Patriots right now. He's probably the heir apparent. He's probably the next Belichick. For sure. Because if you look at what's happened since then, Bill O'Brien had a little bit of success in Houston. Mangini had immediate success in New York. And if he was able to build upon that, then yeah. But it seems like this part of the family tree of Belichick and Parcells is starting to wither. Let's call it what it is. Meanwhile, the Walsh tree continues to thrive and garnish water and come up with plays and may even win 3 Super Bowls in a row. And Bill Walsh, I think, has been dead for about 20 years. So it's just fascinating to see how, over the years, and this is what I'm getting to with episode 3 and 4, to understand the Patriots dynasty is all based upon these two warring family factions, if you will, of how the NFL was to be defined, 80s into the 90s, 90s into the early 2000s, and then here comes the Parcells Belichick side starting to dominate and overtake the entire conversation. It's probably why a lot of young people do not know anything about Joe Montana or what the 49ers did or what they were. They probably don't even remember kind of like the Mike Holmgren, Brett Favre stuff, because the Parcells Belichick tree had become so dominant and choked everything that's why we're here today. So, look, I don't believe it's any type of hit piece on Belichick. I think it's just kind of a cleansing of the air. You know, they say every 15 years we just kind of have to let the bad blood soak out. This is the first chance they get to do it when you've been doing it successfully for almost 20 years. And sometimes I think we take for granted just how big the Patriots were, and sometimes you would really have a better understanding of it is if you lived somewhere else and the amount of disdain people would have for you being a Patriots fan. Like a brother wearing a Tom Brady jersey, like that used to be a bit of a conversation. Oh, what is it about him? He's supposed to be the savior and everything. I was like, nah, our birthdays are a day apart, and so that means we're very much alike, and I get it. And I followed him, and what are you getting at? But that's how strong it was for some people outside of New England, the hatred for the Patriots. So continue watching the Dynasty. If you're getting hung up because they didn't cover, a win streak or, more from Randy Moss, it's not really about the players as much as it is the psychology that was going on at a 30,000-foot level, where the most important player obviously was Brady, who was in the middle of that psychology. But it was really the psychology between Belichick and Kraft. This is really what the Dynasty is about.